You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. It is season 3, episode 93. The Cubs hot stove. It's slowly heating up, Crawly. Don't forget to listen, download, review. Most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Follow on the socials, Fly the W670, Twitter, Instagram. Of course, we're on Facebook. You can email us, flythew670@gmail.com. All right, Crawly, Jed Hoyer making a couple of moves since the last time we talked.
Yeah, if you saw what I put on Twitter at Crawly's Cubs, I said Jed's cooking, but it was a picture of an easy bake oven. So just a little right now, just a little heat coming on here. But the reason that this week, Dustin, has been so important is that there were 2 off-season deadlines, one that happened on Tuesday and one that's happening tomorrow, but everything's kind of happening within this week right here. First one happened on Tuesday, right? So MLB teams had to set their 40-man roster. And the reason that that's big is that any player eligible for the Rule 5 draft and not added to the organization's 40-man roster by Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central Time would be eligible to be taken in the Rule 5 draft. So you had to have them on the 40-man roster. Okay. And so the Rule 5 draft is happening in the last day of the winter meetings, that first week of December. And so players that were signed at age 18 or younger had to be added to 40-man rosters within 5 seasons, or they become eligible to be drafted by other organizations. If they signed at 19 or older, they're protected within 4 seasons. So if we take Moises Ballesteros, for example, a team can't take him in the Rule 5 draft. He's under the Cubs' control because he doesn't have enough time yet. But other players, once they hit that either 4 or 5 year mark, then either you have to put them on the 40-man roster or risk losing them, right?
Right.
And so what we're looking at here now is that the other big date that is going to happen is tomorrow, Dustin. We're recording this on Thursday. Tomorrow at 5 p.m. Central Time, players on the 40-man roster with fewer than 6 years of Major League service time have to be tendered contract. So that's going to be tomorrow. And so they either have to be tendered a contract or non-tendered and released into the free agent pool. So the reason all this stuff kind of is big this week is that the Cubs decided to protect 2 players in the Rule 5 draft. And so we had our friend Brian Smith on, and this is what I asked him. I said, hey, what do you think is going to happen with the Cubs in the Rule 5 draft? And here's what he said if you listen to the last episode.
Be the fun thing I think about the 2025 Cubs is their top prospects are going to provide this layer of depth that is really going to help when injuries happen. Like, you're not going to just be getting like Joe Schmo who kind of, stinks, who's in AAA, who's a 31-year-old veteran that, is unlikely to move the needle much. You're going to have a guy that we're really excited is getting called up. We're going to have Matt Shaw. We're going to have Moises Ballesteros, and we're definitely going to have Owen Caissie in 2025.
Was there now? Again, I know you guys were making your picks and whatnot. Who do you feel other than Owen Caissie? Is there 1 or 2 players you think are most likely to maybe get a 40-man roster spot?
Yeah, I'll say the most likely in my mind is probably this guy named Ben Cowles, another guy they acquired for Mark Leiter Jr. over the summer. Mostly, I think, because they just acquired him. He was injured at the time they acquired him. They knew that this deadline was coming up for him, so I could definitely see him getting acquired, particularly assuming that they're going to probably release Nick Madrigal at the end of this week.
So there you go. Boom. Brian nailed it. To the surprise of no one, though, Owen Caissie added to the 40-man roster, Dustin. So
you had to protect it, right? You got to protect it.
You had to. So there were 4 players on MLB Pipeline's top 100 prospects who needed to be protected. One of them was Owen Caissie he's number 34 on MLB Pipeline's top 100 prospects. And on the other side of town, Colson Montgomery was another one. He was number 37. So you had to protect him. He's officially on the 40-man roster. Dustin, it's hard to believe that the Cubs got Owen Caissie on December 29th, 2020, when the Cubs traded Yu Darvish and Victor Caratini to the Padres in exchange for Zach Davies, and then a couple infielders, and then a couple outfielders, including Owen. But Dustin, everywhere Owen has gone, he's just been an amazing talent. He was on the South Bend Championship Cubs team in 2022, hitting a 3-run home run in the clinching game. In 2023, do you remember him being on Team Canada in the World Baseball Classic? He was playing with guys a lot older than him, right? With major league players, and he was able to hold his own. In 2023, he was with the Double-A Tennessee Smokies, hit 22 home runs and 31 doubles, 519 slugging percentage. So he wins championships in 2022, 2023. It's now, it's just a matter of time before Owen gets called up to Chicago. And if you take a look here about
and where is he playing, Crawly? Where is he playing when he gets called up?
Well, that's the thing, is that you don't want, these guys are not bench players. You don't want him sitting on the bench. This is going to happen. He's a corner outfielder. Okay. If you look at the Cubs 40-man roster, you have 3 guys that are on the 40-man roster, young, very highly touted prospects that could play outfield spots. So we saw Alexander Canario called up before. He's a corner outfielder, right-handed batter. You saw Kevin Alcantara at the end of the season last year. He can play any outfield spot, including center field. And then you have now you're going to have Owen Caissie, who's a corner outfielder. He can play, but he's a lefty. And so this all depends on if either I would say if either Cody Bellinger got injured or Ian Happ, then you would see Owen Caissie. If those guys are going to be out, let's say 10 to 15 days, you're going to give one of those 3 guys I mentioned a chance. But I'm guessing it's probably going to either be Owen Caissie or I would say Owen Caissie would be the first one I would call. You saw already a little bit of the other 2 guys. I think that Kevin Alcantara still has a very high ceiling, but I still think he needs to have a little bit of refinement. You know what I mean? There's still some rough edges on him. But I think that, and I don't think. So
if Nico, let me ask you this. Let me run this. Let's say Nico Hoerner can't be ready for day one. Okay, would you have Michael Busch move over to second, and would you have Cody play first, and would you open up a spot for him to be the opening day right fielder?
I don't think so. I don't want to really move Michael Busch. Honestly, if you're gonna call someone up for second base, I'd like to see how the competition goes.
You'd see what they do. Would you do Shaw at second then?
Yeah, I would think about Shaw, and there's a couple other choices. It depends how long you think he's going to be out for, I think is going to make a difference. But Owen Caissie is a difference maker. And if you take a look, our friend Bruce Levine, friend of the pod, 670 The Score insider, inside the clubhouse, all that fun stuff. He said that, quote, I see a young Paul O'Neill here. And so he has a career 853 OPS in the minors. He's only 22 years old, Dustin.
Right.
22. And so I want him to be an outfielder, and I want him to be a corner outfielder, hopefully. So again, he's not a 4th outfielder. So he's not going to start the season unless you have an injury to either Ian Happ or Cody Bellinger. If that's not, but that's the thing. He's one phone call away. And like we talked about before with Cody Bellinger, he has a big injury history. So, and the Cubs are still trying to trade him. That talk is still going on. I don't know if you saw that piece on Ken Rosenthal on The Athletic. But the Yankees are kind of thinking maybe, just maybe, Cody Bellinger is a backup plan if Juan Soto falls through.
Right. All right. What about Crawly? What about some of the other guys on the 40-man? What other guys did they protect?
The other guy that they protected was Ben Cowles. And, he was somebody that the Cubs got in the Mark Leiter trade along with Jack Neely. And I'm thinking, Dustin, that trade may be really huge in retrospect. We may look at that trade as one of those great trades, like the Scott Feldman for Jake Arrieta and Pedro Strop type deals. Cowles, he looked good for the Yankees Double-A team. He was slashing 294, 376, 472. He can play anywhere other than first base. I mean, I'm sure he could play first base, but he can play second base, shortstop, and third base. No problem as a plus defender. He has some pop and he has some speed. And so he suffered a broken wrist at the end of July, right before the trade. So the Cubs knew he'd be eligible for the Rule 5 draft, but they have that much faith in him that they think he's going to be a really valuable bench piece. So you're asking about Nico Hoerner. I want to see what Cowles looks like in spring training. So he has a little bit more, I want to see him. I want to see a competition. How about a competition between Cowles and, let's say, Matt Shaw or James Triantos. Those are all guys to look at. The one thing I will say, Dustin, though, is that when you got to move like that, when we talk about the non-tendered trade deadline being tomorrow at 5 p.m., that is not good for a guy like, say, Nick Madrigal. I got a feeling that Nick Madrigal Day hours are numbered at this point when we're recording this.
All right, very good. So the Cubs added those guys, but what about, another fan favorite, Brennen Davis, right? He's no longer a Cub.
Yep, because you added those two, you got to take two off. Brennen Davis was one of them, and both these guys just, they at one time were top prospects, but injuries stalled their careers. Brennen Davis was drafted in the second round in 2018 in 50 games in 2019 /305, 381, 525. Obviously, COVID wiped out the minor league season 2020. It sucked. But then in 2021, he slashed 260, 375, 494 in high A, double A, triple A. In 2021. So he was flying up the ladder. He was named the Futures Game MVP in 2021, hitting 2 home runs in the game. And twice, Dustin, in 2019 and 2021, he was named the Cubs minor league player of the year. But, that's the thing with prospects is sometimes health, you can't do that, right? That back surgery happened. I think, if in the middle of 2022, his back gets injured. You follow that up. He had a core surgery in 2023, a fractured ankle in 2024. He got all these other little kind of nicks, and he just couldn't stay healthy. And so he's only played 179 games in the past 3 years, slashing 200, 319, 345. So with Brennen, does that mean it's over? No, I mean, with a guy like Brennen, and when we're going to talk about Adbert.
Well, there's more, right? I mean, Adbert Alzolay is a guy too, right? Yeah.
With Brennen, it really just came down to injuries, and I'm hoping he can stay with the Cubs. Dustin, he's been on the podcast twice. We had him out for the Club 400 Christmas party. I've never met just a nicer kid, and just a young kid who just. And anyone that met him, he had a lot of leadership traits. He was just had his head on his shoulders, like just wise beyond his years. And so I'm hoping that he can stay within the Cubs organization, but you may see a trade. I doubt it. You hope that he can kind of clear waivers and that the Cubs can re-sign him again. Another guy that you hope the Cubs can re-sign, Adbert Alzolay, who was the other guy who was dropped. And he signed with the Cubs as an international free agent, Dustin, in 2013. So he's been, you're talking like 11 years he's been with the organization. He made his debut with the Cubs in 2019, came in to relieve Tyler Chatwood, and he got the win, pitching 4 innings, giving up 1 run and struck out 5. How about this one? I don't know if you remember this. After his first win a few days later, this was a gift left to him by John Lester. It's a bottle of Ace of Spades champagne. And it says to Adbert, congrats on number 1. You see that big Ace of Spades, and it's signed by John Lester. I mean, what a teammate John Lester was,
Yeah, great teammate. Yep.
But
he just bought the wrong beer, Crawly, for everybody on the bar tab. I'm not a Miller Lite guy. I would have loved to. Did you get a beer? Did John Lester buy you a beer?
He bought me a beer, but you know what? I'm one of those guys that says if it's free, that's the best kind of beer.
Yeah, so I won't. I would rather have an ice water than drink a Miller Lite. I got to be honest with you. That's how much my body, and what it really is, Crawly, is my body rejects a Miller Lite.
Wow.
My body just rejects a Miller Lite. So
well, if you have any,
I will not drink a Miller Lite.
Nope. Now, Alzolay pitched 6 games in that weird 2020 season. Not really much you can do. In 2021, he had 29 appearances, 21 starts. So he was kind of always in between starting and in the bullpen. He had a 5-13 record with a 4.58 ERA, but that was a bad team. He had 128 strikeouts and 125 2/3 inning. That was after, they traded everybody and all that crazy stuff. But Alzolay was placed on the 60-day injured list to start the 2022 season with a right shoulder strain. And so he really didn't pitch much in 2022. So the idea is, okay, in 2023, let's move him to the pen full time, right? And I think, Dustin, that was that fun year where he had his best season. He became the closer. He 22 saves, 6 holds. He only blew 3 leads, and most of those leads happened after, I believe, he got injured. And so he pitched 64 innings, 2.67 ERA, 26% strikeout rate. He had that forearm strain in early September, and that's where he blew like 2 saves right there in September. Mm-hmm. And then the season's over, and unfortunately, the Cubs fall out because he's injured. And so either way, he's healthy opening night, But that opening night in Texas, that was a harbinger of what that season was going to be. He blew the lead in the 9th inning in Arlington opening night. And then he allowed 13 runs, 9 earned over 17 in the 3rd innings. He blew 5 saves in 9 chances. And right away, Dustin, they had to pull him from the closer job, right?
Yeah, no choice. 0.
Yeah. And so the Cubs put him on the injured list with another right forearm strain in the middle of May. He ends up on the 60-day IL. He comes back in July, and he's in Iowa, but they have to shut him down. And so in August, Dustin, he undergoes Tommy John surgery. Most likely, 99% chance he's not pitching at all in 2025. So that's why you don't mind putting him on the, DFAing him, because is there a team that just wants to sign him and just kind of let him not pitch? I don't know.
Right. And I agree. Bruce came on and talked about the fact, listen, the Cubs, and no team's going to be in the business to pay a guy $3 million to rehab.
No.
That's at the level that he is at right now. He doesn't deserve that. I mean, unfortunately, right? I mean, he just doesn't.
Well, on Wednesday, Jed also began working on that bullpen. He traded with Carter Hawkins' old club, the Cleveland Guardians.
Yeah, this one's got me scratching my head. But give everybody the details, and then we'll share opinions.
You're scratching your head. Huh? You don't like Eli Morgan?
I didn't say that. Go ahead, give everybody the details, and then here. Okay, let's cut to the chase. Okay, why is he available? Why is he available? This is a team that was in the postseason last year. Now, Bruce tried to explain it as this is a team that is stockpiled with bullpen talent. Okay, but he's proven bullpen talent. Until these guys are proven, they're just, scratch off tickets. I'm just surprised. It just like, do the Guardians think they owe the Cubs a favor? I doubt it. I mean, if anything, the Cubs owe the Guardians a favor, right? I mean, come on.
For 2016.
Right.
But he is Eli is under control for 3 seasons. He's eligible for arbitration the first time this winter. Dustin, he had a great year. He had a 1.93 ERA, 34 strikeouts, 11 walks in 42 innings, 3.97 ERA. The thing is, Dustin, is he becomes arbitration eligible for the first time. So they're going to have to pay him something. Like right before this year, he's making barely, league minimum. But the
he can pay his NICOR. You're telling me just enough to pay the NICOR.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. But here's the trouble: is that Cleveland has a glut of arms. They really have one of the best bullpens in baseball. This guy is not their closer. He wasn't their setup man. He's a guy that I think if you are the Cubs, it's a question of, that the Cubs need a closer. We talked about it. We put it on the wish list. You need a setup man. You need a couple guys that throw gas. He's none of those guys. But what he is a bridge guy. And Dustin, you just cannot have such a weak bullpen. You need as many arms as you can.
Listen, this is all good for the Cubs. I'm just worried that they know something the Cubs don't know.
I just think that they got better. And again, if all of a sudden you told me this is the big bullpen move for the Cubs, no, this is a guy that like I said, he's a bridge guy to get you from 6-7.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a start.
But if you're telling me he's your 6-7, that's good.
Well, the thing that worried me is David Haw put this guy with Hector Neris, and I'm like, you just killed it for me, right? So okay, that's what Hector Neris was supposed to be. Well, we don't need any more Hector Neris, what was supposed to be moments.
What I would tell you about it is Hector Neris, you're looking at the end of his career. This kid's still 28. Okay. And so our buddy Alex Cohen tweeted out that he had one of the best changeups he's ever seen. He's just not to say Hector Neris. No, I would not put it in that. Hector Neris was expected to either be a setup man for Alzolay or to close. No one is expecting Eli Morgan to be a setup man or to close.
Well, he couldn't close. Hector Neris couldn't close.
But the thing right here,
just in case anybody missed that, Hector Neris couldn't close.
Is Eli Morgan had a 1.93 ERA. When you see that, you go, wow, 1.93 ERA. He was able to get out of a lot of jams, but he had a lot of guys left on base. And so that's not going to happen statistically year after year. You're not going to put, leave 30 to 40% guys on base. That's the thing. It's so like Hector Neris came over with a really, really low ERA last season, and he couldn't produce. So I would say, based on what your expectations are compared to what your expectations were to Hector Neris and where Hector Neris is in his career compared to Eli Morgan, I wouldn't make that comparison.
Yeah.
The Cubs did give up Alfonso Rosario. He was named 21 on the Cubs top 30 prospect list. But he was in low A in Myrtle Beach. He's not going to do anything in the near future, so I don't think you worry too much about it. But here's the thing. Rosario was not on the 40-man roster, which meant you had to have a corresponding move to add Morgan. And the odd man out this time was Patrick Wisdom. P-Wiz spent part of 5 seasons with the Cubs, 84 home runs, 462 slugging percentage in 414 games. Dustin, he beat Chris Bryant's single-season rookie record for home runs in 2021. Finished 4th in National League Rookie of the Year voting, but in 2024, he was in a bench role. He hit 171, 8 homers. He's going to be paid more money this year, about $3 million. And at this point, the Cubs really, I think this is where you take a look at when you have a guy like Ben Cowles that's going to be on the team now that they put on the 40-man roster, Matt Shaw, all these guys. You're running out of room to have a guy like Patrick Wisdom, especially for what he's making this year. You could get something cheaper.
Yeah, and again, he might be a guy that comes around as well, right? Who knows?
Yep. One more move that Jed had up his sleeves. He ends up getting a catcher, Dustin. We have a catcher.
I don't know. You were looking for backup catcher, Crawly. I don't think this guy was on your list.
Matt Thaiss was not on my list, but what he is a depth piece. Right now, Dustin, there's only one catcher on the 40-man roster, and that is Miguel Amaya. That's it. And so you don't have anyone else that's there. So Matt Thaiss he has experience. He spent the last 2 seasons with the Angel, backup catcher. He's an above average blocker, but was below average in framing, and he doesn't do a good job.
He's a lefty. He's a lefty bat, right? I mean, he's a lefty bat.
Yeah, he's really not much. But again, you're talking about a depth piece. And for those people that follow Cubs Reporter, that's the official place where Arizona Phil is like a legend out there. He is an expert of knowing everything that's going on in Arizona. And he wrote about Matt Thaiss. He said that he saw Matt Thaiss play a lot because the Cubs play the Angels a lot in minor league spring training and instructs and different things. But he basically, he said that he started out, he played only first base in his first 3 seasons with the Angels because of his bat, but he didn't hit it well and pro ball. And so then he moved to third, which was a disaster. And then they moved him back to catcher, which was what he played in college. But basically he's a AAA, more likely a 4A catcher, but he's a guy that God forbid you have a guy go down, you at least have somebody that can come in and be serviceable. Okay. You don't have to go into single A or double A to pick somebody up. So with Matt Thaiss, again, not a guy that you're needing to have, as he's not your backup catcher. They're not done. They're going to still move on backup catchers. But, it really is, Dustin, for me, it was kind of tough when we talk about Brennen Davis, Patrick Wisdom. Patrick Wisdom was on the podcast twice. I interviewed him on a rooftop at Wrigley Field.
Yeah, I know you guys, you've done a lot with him.
Yeah, and Adbert Alzolay and his wife Diana, great people. It is tough, and I think doing what we do, Dustin, working in getting to meet these guys, getting to know them, their families, it's hard because the more attached you become, you realize that they're human beings that have lives.
They are people too. They are people too, no doubt.
All these moves were the correct moves, Dustin, 100%. It's just, I think they're really good players, and to lose like a guy like, I think Jesse Rogers put it out. You lost Kyle Hendricks and Patrick Wisdom from that clubhouse. Those are 2 great guys to have in there. But really hoping that they land on their feet somewhere. And for Adbert and Brennen, I hope they get to stick around with the Cubs and hopefully continue their careers.
You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast, episode 93 of season 3. Cubs hot stove slowly heating up. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the podcast. But most of all, we'd love a 5-star review. You can email us, flythew670@gmail.com. Don't forget to watch us. That's right. We are on YouTube, the Scores YouTube page. In this segment, Crawly talks to our good friend of the pod, Rich Biesterfeld, for another dispatch from the desert as the Arizona Fall League is just wrapped up. And Rich tells us how the Cubs prospects and the Mesa Solar Sox did.
Joining me now on the Fly the W podcast with another dispatch from the desert. We welcome our friend Rich Biesterfeld. Rich, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
Oh, can do. It's always sad to me when the Arizona Fall League ends because I think it's such a unique, just kind of little fun time in baseball that it's a lot of fun because you get so many young prospects, so many interesting things to kind of watch. And you're just kind of squeezing the last amount of baseball before it gets even colder over here for us.
Mm-hmm. It definitely is. It's I would say I get to see Cubs prospects that I already know, but then you get to see a lot of the top talent, and then you just kind of start watching, because a lot of the guys you see in the fall league in the next year or 2 years, a lot of times are playing in the big leagues. Some of them, like one of the guys that I didn't know that well, David Fry from the Guardians, got to know him like 2 years ago. Look at in the playoffs this year, hits a walk-off home run and just, had some big games for the Guardians. So it's just kind of fun. You have a different rooting interest for those guys when you get to know them a little bit.
Now for the Mesa Solar Sox, they finished with a record of 14-16. So it was, most of the teams were 16-14, 14-16. There wasn't that many different. Surprise Saguaros were 18-10. But again, this is really about development, getting these young kids, tell us a little bit why some of these teams select these players to play in the Arizona Fall League.
Yeah, there's a number of reasons. Sometimes it's for a guy who's maybe been banged up during the year, missed some time due to injury. So there were a couple guys like that for the Cubs. Grant Kipp and Sam Thorson, I would say, kind of fall into that category. Then sometimes you've got guys that you want to challenge, because it used to be higher level. Now you've got a lot of A level players, high A and low A, but you also got double A and triple A in there. So I would put like Luis Rujano and Shane Marshall, a couple of the other pitchers, in that category, who they're facing tougher hitters than they've faced during the regular season at Myrtle Beach this year. And then like Ben Cowles, Ben, who was acquired in the Mark Leiter Jr. trade this summer. Ben missed some of that time with the broken wrist that happened right before the trade. So getting him some at bats. Johnny Long, Moises Ballesteros, I think those are just, again, getting them higher level at bats, lengthening out their season a little bit too. So as you get to the higher levels and hopefully you're playing into the playoffs, playing more games, that takes a toll, and getting guys a little bit ready for that.
And so with Moises Ballesteros, it's an interesting name. Obviously, one of the Cubs' top prospects in their system. And for me, when I think about Moises, I think there's no doubt that the hit tool's already there. I think he could be successful in the major leagues as a hitter. It's just a question of where. I mean, it doesn't seem like he could be a first baseman, as far as unfortunately doesn't have the height, doesn't have the reach. but hey, as a short guy, I feel his pain. But when I look at him, the question is always just going to be his catching ability. Can he stick at that position? Can he be a serviceable catcher? Because we know he can hit. And so did you see him playing a lot of catcher out in the Arizona Fall League?
Yeah, he caught probably about every second or third day. There was a couple pretty strong catchers on the Mesa roster along with them. So, but he was still catching about every second or third day. He was doing a little bit of DHing too. He didn't really play any first base or anything else while he was there. You're asking the question that I probably got the most from any of my friends or people that knew me. It's, how does he look at catcher? The honest answer is it's really hard to tell in the AFL, primarily because the catchers are working with a whole new squad of pitchers. They've got like a few, there were 4 pitchers from the Cubs, but most of those guys weren't at the same level as Moises. So while he might know those guys a little bit, then the whole rest of the staff he hasn't caught before. So, right. When you're seeing when you're seeing some pass balls or things like that, it's like, okay, is that on Moises? Is that on the pitcher? When you're seeing guys stealing bases, how much is the pitcher holding on? Is it him? I saw in one game, literally the pitcher had not released the ball yet, and there was a runner more than halfway from second to third. So it's like, okay, I don't care if you got Johnny Bench's arm, you're not going to throw the guy out. So what I can say for Moises is watching him, because I watched him in spring, I got to see him for a few games in Iowa this summer. I did think he looked a lot more smooth, a lot more comfortable back there, moving around as far as to block pitches and stuff like that. He looked more comfortable. And to me, that was a really good thing. Is he ready to be an everyday catcher in the big leagues? I'm not enough of a scout to say yay or nay on something like that, but I did see improvement through this year.
And he was one of the representatives in the Fall-Star game and in the Home Run Derby. So
yes, he was.
A lot of fun. But the other representative for the Cubs there, a guy that really, to me stood out when you're talking Arizona Fall League is Jonathan Long, first baseman, third baseman, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he really, really turned some heads, I think, in the Arizona Fall League.
Yeah. I mentioned before we went on the air, it's like I've got an article coming out tomorrow kind of recapping a lot of this. So, one of the things I talk about with Jonathan that I really liked is I don't recall ever seeing him overswing. He always just takes what looks like a really good swing, and then the ball just pops. I think he had 6 home runs during the AFL, but did he have some swing and miss? Occasionally, but I did never feel like I saw him just get really fooled and just, like he's swinging from the heels and going off. It's just he makes good contact and the ball flies when he makes that good contact.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see where they start him this year. I'm hoping, South Bend is close by. I'd like to check out and kind of take a look for myself. Now, another guy that you mentioned, Ben Cowles, it really seems that the Cubs are in on this guy, right? I mean, they knew when with the Leiter trade, they knew he was injured. Mm-hmm. They knew he was going to be able to be taken. He was going to have to take a 40-man roster spot probably. Mm-hmm. And so, when you're talking about a broken wrist, obviously that's something you worry about and you want to kind of get some at bats. Did you notice anything about Ben Cowles? I mean, it seems like, the thing I keep hearing is he's just can play all over the infield and looks really good. Obviously it's going to take him time to get his swing back, but how did he look to you over in Arizona?
I thought he looked really good. He played primarily second shortstop. I believe I watched him play in 2023 as well in the AFL when he was with the Yankees. The Yankees happened to be assigned to the Mesa Solar Sox in 2023. So I'd gotten to know Ben last year already. So I knew him before he came over in that deal. But he played more third base in 2023, but they didn't have him there this year. But yeah, he looked smooth all over. I think the other thing that we kind of talked about is I think overall with his hitting numbers at the end of the year, or I should say end of the AFL season, I think he was around league average. But you could see he wasn't as comfortable this year at the plate. But the thing that really jumped out at me that I didn't recall or I didn't notice as much in 2023 was the speed. He was turning singles into doubles, even I think one double into a triple. He was flying around the bases, and that's something I kind of feel like the Cubs haven't had a lot on their bench. And with him being added to the 40-man now, hopefully he'll see some time possibly at Wrigley this year. That would be a nice thing to have that speed come into play at times.
Right, and just a question, just a guy that can play all over the infield. We don't know what. I just wonder if he would, because of the hitting stuff right now, if he would be able to compete if Nico Horner wasn't able to play second.
Yeah.
As opposed to say like a Nick Madrigal or a Luis Vasquez or something to that degree.
Boy, yeah, and I could be way off, but my gut feeling is if Nico isn't ready at the beginning of the season, I think Matt Shaw gets a long look at spring training.
Here we go, right?
Well, I got to see Matt play this fall again because he's playing right now over in Japan with Team USA. What is it? I'm drawing a blank on the name right now, but
the Premier 12.
Premier 12, thank you. But so before they went down to Mexico, they played 3 exhibition games out here in Arizona. So he was playing third base in all 3 games that I saw, and they played ASU and then 2 smaller colleges. So the pitching wasn't as high probably as he's used to seeing, but he was swinging the bat well. He looked good at third, was playing good defense. You had him and Carson Williams, who's a top prospect for the Tampa Bay Rays on the left side of the infield. So like I said, I think that's like I say, that's just my personal feeling, my guess. But if Nico isn't ready, I think Shaw gets a long look over Nick Madrigal or some of the other guys.
Hey man, from your lips to the baseball gods' ears. That's all I could tell you. I'm Nick Madrigal'd out. There were
Mhm.
not not to say anything negative about Nick, but
No,
I'm good here on that. And
I'm
then
with you.
there were some pitchers that you mentioned, Grant Kipp, obviously,
Mhm.
Luis Rujano. How did the Cubs
Mhm.
pitchers look out? I mean, Arizona's always a tough place, I feel like, to judge
Yeah,
pitchers. But
it
what did you
is.
see out of them compared? Because I know you did a whole minor league tour this year.
Yeah. Um, I would say Grant and Luis worked primarily as starters, although Luis kind of went back and forth a little bit. I only got to see two of Luis Rojano's appearances, and he looked pretty good in those. Grant did. I think he started all the games he was in. He had one rough start where he was struggling a little bit with his command, but the other ones he looked solid. He probably went 3 to 4 innings in each of his start, which that's pretty good out here by this time of year. So he gave some depth, kept the team in the game. So he wasn't blowing guys away, but he looked very solid. I didn't mention Vince Riley. Vince was probably, of all the pitchers, Vince probably looked the best of the Cubs guys to me. Um, I think he went somewhere around 8 or 9 innings in total, usually 1 inning relief stints, but just came in throwing strikes and getting outs. Um, the other two pitchers who were out here were Shane Marshall and Sam Thorson. Shane served for a good part of the year as the closer at Myrtle Beach. Sam, I think, spent most of the year at Myrtle, and maybe, I can't remember for sure if he went up to South Bend late in the year or not. But Shane probably struggled a little bit early. I talked to at one point, and I forgot how he said it exactly, but it was like, it's time to get this thing turned around. And then he did. He started throwing more strikes and had some good appearances. Sam, it seemed like would get like 2 outs in an inning, would be throwing pretty well, and then would just the strike zone seem to jump around on him.
Hmm.
So Sam is not the guy his stuff is really good. I've even talked to like a couple scouts out in Arizona, and they always kind of look at him like, is this somebody we should be considering drafting? But it's the challenge of throwing strikes, which is, I think most pitchers will tell you, right? It's easy to say throw strikes. It's not easy to do.
Now, the Arizona Fall League is also a place where you can kind of test new things out.
Mhm.
What to you really kind of stood out when you were looking at the Arizona Fall League? Were there any rules or things that baseball was trying this year?
Yeah. We did have a continuation of the ball strike challenge. So catchers, pitchers, hitters could call that. It wasn't set up in every stadium, but they did have that. I like that. I believe they're also have announced they're going to be trying that in spring training as well.
So let me ask you, Rich,
Mhm.
you have watched a whole lot of baseball in your life.
Yeah.
If you were to say, okay, baseball's either going to do all robo umps or the challenge system, what are you going with?
I like the challenge. I think if you really look at it, most of the times the umps get it right, but I like that ability to have somebody else take a second look at it when the calls, as Jim Deshays would say, when it's egregious.
And people got to understand, it takes no time. It literally has to be instantaneous.
Exactly.
Pitcher, catcher, hitter. So you're not looking at, do you ever see the shot on the video replay where the manager talks to the video guy, and then puts a finger up, and then eventually, no, it's boom, boom, boom.
Yep. Yeah. It doesn't delay the game. And actually, I was talking to a friend of mine today who pointed out Moises Ballesteros is very good with the challenges. There was a game at Salt River where they did have the challenge system. He had at least 2 that he challenged, got them both right.
Nice.
So he's got a pretty good eye for that, which is a nice thing.
Now, something new in the Arizona Fall League was the check swing challenge system. That to me is all. I love this stuff. I know some people are like purists. I love this stuff, man. How did you get to see the Hawkeye check swing challenge?
Yeah, I think I saw it once or twice, and I'll be honest, I'm still like trying to decipher what they're using to determine it, because like the ball strike challenge, they show it up on the scoreboard, but it was kind of like, okay, I'm not sure what angle they're coming, because they'll show kind of like a vector that's colored, and then they'll show what's kind of the path of the bat, and it looks like they've got like a point of no return, so to speak. But like I say, I didn't see enough of it to really to get a firm handle on it. So
that was at Salt River Fields, right?
Yes.
Man,
yeah, they didn't have it at Sloan.
Okay, so it's Salt River Fields, and so that was, to me, it's sometimes you sit there and to me it's like, I think the little ticky-tacky stuff, I don't care either way. It's the egregious stuff, the Jim DeShay's egregious, where you just sit there and say, like, look, if the technology exists, tennis has been using the same exact thing when you're talking about the Hawkeye system, that to do this, why not use it? It just makes way more sense to me.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. It's let's get the calls right. I mean, that's even if it goes against you, I'd rather have it be the right call than winning on something that you that you just know is bad.
Right. And again, I love the fact that Moises Ballesteros has such a good eye, because that's going to help him challenge when you're talking either hitting or from receiving from his pitcher, right? Is if he sees something, he'll know it. Boom. Rich, I'm waiting for retirement. It's kind of I can see it out in the distance a little bit, but boy, oh boy, would I just love to spend some time in the fall, kind of just checking out Arizona Fall League baseball. What are the crowds like there for you? And is it a lot of fun? You got a lot of good baseball people out there?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Crowds aren't real big. Obviously depending on the day, and, there's a mix of day games and night games. There's 6 different teams. There's 3 that we kind of refer to on the east side of the valley and 3 on the west side of the valley. And then they actually throw in a couple like out at Goodyear, where like the Reds and the Guardians train. And then they had, I think, 1 game this year at Maryvale, where the Brewers train. But, primarily at Sloan, at Salt River Fields, in Scottsdale, where the Giants play, out in Surprise, out in Peoria, and out in Glendale. But yeah, it's fun. You get to see some of the folks from like the MLB network. If you follow the minor leagues, you see a lot of the writers from MILB. Got to meet like somebody that's been following on Twitter who writes about the Detroit Tigers for a couple of years. I followed her for a long time and got to meet in person. So you get a lot of that. We joke about it. There's a lot of the photographers that I know, some of them that are based here, some that come out for at least part of the fall league. So it's fun renewing those acquaintances. And as one of my friends said the other day, it's like, yeah, we come to the baseball, but we have a lot of fun. We're working hard, but we're also having a lot of fun while we're hanging out in the camera wells and shooting, and we're paying attention. But yeah, it's renewing those acquaintances as well.
And like you said, you never know which one of these young players in a couple of years is going to be the next hero of a postseason game or the big breakout star. Rich, I'm really looking forward to seeing your article in Northside Bound about the Arizona Fall League. Tell our listeners where they can follow you on the socials and where they can read your article. Sure.
Working with the folks over at Northside Bound on Twitter and Instagram. Got the same handle. It's BIEST22. So give me a follow if you're so inclined.
And definitely check out that article. I'll make sure we'll link it when we get this out tomorrow, Rich. I appreciate you spending some time, and I'm looking forward to seeing you for opening day in Arizona at Chase Field.
It'll be fun.
This is season 3, episode 93, Cubs Hot Stove slowly heating up of the Fly the W670 podcast. Please leave us a 5-star review. Also, please share an email with Crawly and I. Fly the W670 gmail.com. And you can watch us on the Score YouTube page. All right, Crawly, it's award season in baseball. We've handed a couple out, and we've got a couple more to go.
Yeah, you're taking a look here at the award season, and they've had some announcements that have been happening. When you take a look at on Monday, they announced the Rookie of the Year, the Jackie Robinson Rookie of the Year, but the winners were Paul Skeens of the Pirates for the NL and Yankees right-hander Luis Gil. First time, Dustin, since 1981 that both winners were starting pitchers. Rest in peace, Fernando Valenzuela, huh?
Mm-hmm.
But, for Cub fans, the gut punch came on Tuesday. That's when they announced the Manager of the Year award.
I don't know. Is that a gut punch? Maybe it's a wake-up call, Crawly. Maybe it's a gut punch to the guys that own and manage our favorite baseball team. But I don't know if it's a gut punch to fans.
It just kind of didn't feel good to see the Brewers manager, Pat Murphy, getting this former bench coach of the Cubs skipper. But when I think of Craig Counsell, Dustin, I truly believe that he is going to be making organizational changes. I think he came in last year, didn't get his coaches, kind of just walking in, seeing what the lay of the land is. I think this year we're going to see.
I sure hope so. I sure hope so, because again, Crawly, with all due respect, okay, they paid that guy $2 million a year more than anybody else was willing to. I don't know who they thought they were negotiating against. He was never, ever, ever going to New York, ever.
I think I don't think money, I'm not saying money doesn't matter to him. Obviously, money matters. But if you were going to say, hey, the Cubs wanted him to come from Milwaukee, you don't think he knew he was going to get a whole bunch of blowback and people being angry at it? That's his community, right?
Okay. I'm just saying, I just don't. Who were the Cubs negotiating against? And Crawly, right now, nobody was happy with what the Cubs did, how they spent money in the offseason.
I have again, the money that Craig Counsell make is nothing compared to what players make. I think
but I'm saying it's money that the Cubs potentially decided not to spend on free agents because they spent it on a manager that they overpaid.
No, I don't think they overpaid. I think they got the right man for the right job. And again, you're not talking about, what is it, 5, 6, whatever, however $1 million. That's nothing. That has nothing to do with anything as far as free agency.
Okay. You keep telling yourself that.
No, it truly doesn't.
How do you, I mean, I'm not going to say but how can you say that so definitively?
So you're telling me
because the Cubs told us so?
No, because if you look at what he's making compared to, like, say what free agent, let's say Juan Soto, right?
No, but I'm saying what he's making compared to another manager.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that doesn't have anything to do with being able to go out and get free agents.
Well, it's maybe not Juan Soto, but I'm just saying they thought that by paying this guy $2 million more than you pay any other manager, he was going to be good for a lot more wins than he was. And he wasn't.
He's getting paid $8 million. I mean, what does that get you? A middle reliever tops?
Well, they sure could have used anything in that bullpen.
Again, you also didn't know half your guys were going to go down, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I'm shocked. Listen, I'm all about the opinions. You and I are going to disagree mightily on this one.
Yeah, and again, I think if it came down to it, and if the Cubs didn't put that $2 million, I think he would have just preferred to go back to Milwaukee.
He's got to have a massive sophomore season.
I think he will. I think he's
okay.
I think we are going to see.
I hope he does. Listen, I hope he does. I hope the reason is he came in late. This wasn't his crew. Yada yada yada. I'm just worried that Pat Murphy was like the secret sauce, the straw that stirred the drink.
Pat Murphy is a good right-hand man, a very good baseball guy. I think that the Brewers have a great system. And so because of that, with the players, you saw their bullpen again. They always seem to manufacture those guys. Was that Pat Murphy? No. They knew before everything with their rookie, with their outfielder. They knew that they gave him that huge deal, Jackson Chourio. They knew he was going to be a breakout star. Was that because of Pat Murphy? No. Pat Murphy was in the driver's seat. And
he might have known how to push the buttons, right? I mean, well, then I hope that Craig Counsell made it so turnkey for him that he falls flat on his face after a year removed. Let's see. I mean, that's for Cub fans. That's the wish. That's the goal.
I think it would be a year or two. I would think a year or two removed would be what I believe. Like, I think a year or two removed, you're going to start to see the Brewers go down. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe
I hope that. Listen, I hope you're right. All right, let's carry on. We've gotten a little carried away with that, but that's those are opinions, and I'd love to hear from our listeners. Email us, chime in. What do you think?
Yes, sir. And so when we talk about the Cy Young Award, that was last night. You had the Braves, Chris Sale winning the NL, and the Tigers, Tariq Skubal winning in the AL. But for Cub fans, it was nice to see that little love for Shota Imanaga. You got a couple third place votes. So some third place, fourth place, and fifth place votes. So it really, really wasn't close. Chris Sale, 26 first place votes. Zach Wheeler had 4, 25 second place votes. And then Paul Skeens, really kind of coming up at third there. But to me, Shota getting fourth, not bad. When you take a look at that, Sale, Wheeler, Skeens, CC Managa. I mean, that sounds right?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds right. He was a fantastic signing. I hope it carries over into next year. I hope he has a fantastic sophomore season, and I'm still glad, even though he's a Cub, still glad he didn't win Rookie of the Year because he's not a rookie.
Right, we are in agreement. Roki Sasaki, Rob Manfred kind of let this one out. He expects Roki Sasaki to sign with a major league club as part of the 2025 international signing class. So that means he wouldn't sign before January 15th. And so, as far as that goes, and this is from Megan Montemurro, that she kind of put this up on her Twitter, but she was talking about it. The Cubs have $6,261,000 for their 2025 international bonus pool, the same as 11 other teams, including the Mets, Yankees, Phillies, Padres, and Red Sox. The Rays, the Brewers, and the Mariners have the most, at a little bit less, like $7.5 million they have to spend. But when you talk about Sasaki, all that everybody's really been talking about is that he wants to play for a major market team. So the Cubs are in the same boat as the Mets, Yankees, Phillies, Padres, and Red Sox. So again, it's not going to cost, it's going to blow all your international bonus pool money to get Sasaki, but it's not a lot of money. It's a little over $6 million, which when you're talking about hopefully having a top tier pitcher is nothing.
Yeah, Bruce did mention today with Mully and Haw, he thinks the Cubs are all in on that pitcher.
Yep, I would hope so, but they're going to have to make the pitch, right? They're going to have to sell it. It's
but
not
I think,
about money.
I think Shota will help. I think Seiya helps. I think those things help the Cubs for sure.
I agree with you that they help. My only concern is when you talk about Juan Soto, and I've been watching Juan Soto meeting with everybody, but not the Cubs. Do you know what he's asking them, Dustin? He's asking them, "What's your plan to win?" He knows that they're going to make money. He wants to win, and I think when you talk about Roki, he's going to want to win as well. He doesn't want to be on some team that's just kind of mediocre. He wants to be in the postseason. Think about how much that had to mean to Shohei Ohtani.
Oh, Shohei.
Talking about Ohtani. I mean, you had all those years that Shohei was just sitting there wasting away in Anaheim, and then he gets to be in the postseason and win the World Series.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know that he signed a deal that I think eventually he's going to be like outlawed, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I do. What I'm just saying though is
he wanted that, right? He
wants to play for a winner. He didn't care about the money. He wanted to play for a winner, and he thought the Dodgers were going to do it, and he ends up being right. I think the same thing with Roki. He's going to want to play for a winner. So what are the Cubs going to say to convince them that they're ready to win now? That's my question.
Right. Well, it's a good question. I think Crawly, you should save that question for the Cubs convention.
Oh, I got so many questions, Dustin. I need time.
You need some plants.
Yeah. As far as it goes, just one more note here. Matt Shaw and the Team USA played Team Japan today. Team Japan #1 ranked, and oh boy, did the USA get their butts whooped 9-1. Dustin, Japan scored 9 times.
9 times.
Now, Matt Shaw was 0 for 4, unfortunately, in the game. He did have 1 strikeout. There was only 6 hits for Team USA, so not a lot of hits. But the game was very close. In fact, the USA had the 1-0 lead in the 5th before Japan scored 3 runs. They also scored 3 in the 7th and 3 in the 8th. So it ended up being 9-1. But get this, Dustin, we talked about former Cub Rich Hill, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, if he starts, look out. This is not going to be good, right? Guess who started?
Rich Hill.
Went 4 innings pitched, gave up 1 hit, no runs.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So, you know what? Hey, Rich Hill wants to come back. I don't know if the Cubs want him, but I think that he's going to be a guy that's going to be interesting if you are a contender. Just a really good depth piece to have Rich Hill back. Somehow this guy just keeps sticking around, keeps surviving somehow.
Very interesting. All right, Crawly, that is a wrap. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Follow on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram. Of course, we're on X. You can email us, flythew670@gmail.com, and you can watch us by subscribing to the 670 The Score YouTube channel. Crawly, enjoy a couple of days, and we'll get back at it soon as we are heading to the Thanksgiving Day holiday.
Yeah, and we're just going to keep an eye on things. Again, non-tender deadline is tomorrow. There's going to be a lot of guys that maybe a few guys that are going to no longer be on the north side. Either way, go Cubs. Hey guys, it's Crawly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Go Cubs!